Hello, highly sensitive person, and welcome to this week's episode of the Highly Sensitive Club. I am so thrilled to have my colleague and friend Em on today. Em was my mentee going through coach training, and I have loved watching their journey since then. I'm going to give it to you to introduce yourself and tell us about your business and what you're doing now.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor and a treat to be here speaking with you. You are an incredible mentor, and everything you've built with your journey is so awesome to see. I'm Em Robertson, they, them pronouns, and I am a life coach. Really Forward Coaching is my business, and I support queer and neurodivergent folks to unlearn the systems of burnout and productivity and expectation that we're often taught that we have to function under. And learn how we can better support our capacity and our energy by learning how to work within the systems in a way that helps our brain.
That is a fantastic explanation. Of course, my highly sensitive people can relate because we are also neurospicy. How did you discover that you were neurodivergent, and what does that look like for you?
I first learned that I was probably highly sensitive connecting with you. I don't remember if you said specifically or alluded to it. And I was like, what is this about? This seems to resonate. That was the first part of that journey, recognizing that my strong reactions, my feeling deeply, thinking deeply is not weird. It's not strange. There are other people who relate to experiencing the world in this way. Then fast forward a little bit, I did get a late diagnosis for ADHD, and that has helped to connect more dots on my journey and help bring more clarity to how I exist in this world. Yeah.
I love that I was your first introduction to high sensitivity because I tend to be most people's introduction who are in my world to high sensitivity. You started knowing you were highly sensitive. There's nothing wrong with it. Getting your late diagnosis, ADHD, connecting more dots, that is huge. I'm curious because I have a lot of listeners who have both high sensitivity and ADHD. What does that look like for you in your life?
That is a great question. It shows up feeling really deeply and thinking really deeply, understanding when overwhelm kicks in from various situations. I think I learned early on to kind of press that stuff down and ignore it. So when I'm able to recognize that something is draining me, that is a signal for me that my ADHD is going to kick in. If I'm at lower capacity and if I'm exhausted or unfocused, that is when some of the things with ADHD become more pronounced, like, short-term memory or time blindness. Those things become a little bit more exaggerated. Being able to understand how both of these play a role and work together is really helpful in designing a life that is supportive of how I work.
Define time blindness, because I can already hear some of my listeners being like, oh, I think I might have that. What is that?
There's a few different ways it shows up, but it's when it's difficult to understand how long something's going to take. Oftentimes, I will think that I can get all 10 things done on my to-do list in a day. I truly believe that there's enough time for me to get it done. I'll knock 2 off and think, okay, I got this. And then at the end of the day, I maybe got 3. This is part of that time blindness and not being able to predict as easily how long something's going to take or the time between when an event happened and when somebody asks you about it again. I might be like, oh, that was last week. And someone's like, that was 3 weeks ago. That's how time blindness can show up for some folks.
I'm so glad you defined that, Em, because I think that's also an overlap with high sensitivity that I had never considered before. I can't tell you how many times as a highly sensitive person, I have either not responded to an email or a text message for a day or two. And then for the other highly sensitive person, additional time will go by. And we're both like, oh, it's just been a week. And then we look back at the timestamps and it's been a month and a half since we started corresponding. Yes. I think that's normal for people who are very deeply focused on a lot of things that are going on in your head. I also have an episode about how high sensitivity and ADHD interact with each other because there is some Venn diagram and there are some differences. Now I'm thinking I probably need to talk about this with highly sensitive people.
That's really fascinating because both highly sensitive people and ADHD folks just take in so much information. We're processing every aspect of the environment and the people that we're with. I could see how that could maybe inflate or shift how someone experiences time, because there's so much more information that we're trying to sort through.
Oh, I want to come back because your coaching business is called Queerly Forward. I want to learn more from you about your experience as a queer person with neurospiciness. Tell us a little bit more about that.
I am queer, trans non-binary person with ADHD. The reason I chose Queerly Forward, it's a little bit a joke because oftentimes people give directions. They say, go straight. So as someone who is not straight, we often used to say gaily forward, just to subvert it and mix it up in my circles. But now, as a person who identifies as queer and someone who lives by a sort of philosophy of queerness, I was like, let's shake that up and make it queerly forward. I think it really embraces this idea that there's not one path, there's not one straight line to follow. Everybody's is unique, and it's going to be, based on your own experiences. It also is a way of giving yourself permission to live outside of the norms. I think living queerly is to choose to do things differently, whether that's your identity, honoring your identity, how you have relationships with people. It could be how you show up at work, even. There's such an assumed way of existing within our work culture that, choosing to do things differently is the queer way, and is a really wonderful opportunity to model for other people that they also have a different option.
First of all, I am going to be very conscious about saying continue forward. What I heard from what you said is that thinking queerly is a philosophy, it's a lifestyle, stepping outside the norm, figuring out your own ways of doing things, because it's not a straight line from point A to point B. There's often A to J to F to M and back to B and then on.
And maybe a 6, 7, 8 thrown in.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Let's add some numbers into this letter diagram. What does the philosophy of queerness look like as far as anyone could approach it?
I think the North Star is curiosity. It's asking questions about why people do the things they do, why the expectations people follow exist. A lot of times, especially with coaching, we can really identify some of these rules and some of these ways that we might be making choices or engaging with other people that we think we're supposed to be doing, when actually there could be different ways of doing it. I think of people pleasers. There's often a kind of masking communication that can happen where a people pleaser might be so concerned with offending somebody or making the wrong statement that their true, authentic self isn't coming out. And then that's unclear for the people around them. That's an accessible example for HSP folks. And it's so vast. I think queerness is probably also where the ADHD brain is like, oh my God, I have all the options. This is great. It can apply to any aspect of your life. How you choose to purchase new clothes, whether you support your local CSA instead of just shopping at the regular grocery store, choosing to engage with people that you wouldn't normally engage with in your day-to-day life, making a concerted effort to ask somebody a question or engage in a conversation with someone who's very different from you. In my mind, that's how this queer philosophy can start to show up.
Yeah. Being the word nerd that I am, the word queer really just means unusual or strange. I don't know about you, but as a neurospicy person, I really take a lot of pride in being unusual and strange and having a unique perspective. I love that these things can all come together and create lots of opportunities for you to see the world differently and to use that as an advantage and a gift to connect more with people or to make more thoughtful decisions. Underlying all of the examples that you gave, I also heard a value around conscientiousness. I relate to that too. We put our compost bucket out today because I want to keep food out of the landfill. It's little things like that that really help us take our high sensitivity or ADHD or both or any type of neurospiciness and turn it into something that really serves us and serves other people and serves the planet too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Can you give us an example of how queerness shows up in your life or how you can take that approach to any area of your life?
Yeah. It's interesting to think about because I feel like that's the lens that I come from. Most of the choices I make tend to be different or queer. It can be something like choosing not to work in corporate anymore, choosing to honor that that was not healthy for my energy and my capacity. Also, trusting that I can move forward into something else without knowing exactly what it is. I feel like that is a queer way of approaching things. Anytime there is an expectation, like maybe making X amount of money, that might be an expectation. But what if how you think about money and how it comes and goes was shifted? What if the value or your priorities became more about the people or the community you're around? Like, how does that shift maybe what you think you need to purchase, or the material things that you think you need to get by? I think you can apply it in many different ways. Queerness is really leaning into all of the quirky you that's inside and letting it come out, regardless of what frameworks or structures you think you're supposed to exist within.
What I'm hearing is that even if you're not gay, even if you're not trans, it's okay to borrow the parts of the queer philosophy that help you
Yes.
get curious, to think outside the box, and to question whether the system is actually beneficial and inclusive to everyone, or it needs to be tweaked, or you need to design your own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People who do this can better engage with those who are already living in this way. The more, the merrier. Definitely borrow. This is permission for you to look at how other people are living their lives differently than you and really get curious and see if it is something that would make sense for you to try in your own life.
That's so welcoming of you, Em, which I really appreciate. You want people to come in, you want them to experience the way that you experience the world because it's actually better for all of us.
I believe very deeply that the more people who can live like that, the better off we're all going to be.
Ooh, I heard that in your voice when you said that. That was really powerful. I'm so glad that you mentioned that too, because while I am straight and cisgender, I also am polyamorous. There are parts of that side of my experience that I do bring into other areas of my life where it really surprises people. For instance, because you have also said this is the case for you, the way that I communicate is very unusual for a lot of people. I'm very clear about what I want and what I'm looking for and how I feel. What would you say are some of those qualities or values that you really recommend people can grow?
I'm going to say there are two things. One is self-trust, knowing and understanding your own needs, your own capacity, and what that looks like. Two is communication, which is key. The more you can be clear about what you need with other people, the less they have to guess and the less they have to try to figure out how to move forward. Self-trust and communication are really critical because when you are doing things differently, other people may not understand where you're coming from or why you're thinking the way you are or why you might need certain things. Developing your ability to communicate clearly to other people, whether they are also HSP or ADHD or not, is a super beneficial tool to have in your pocket.
I've heard this analogy many times that when you design systems for the people on the outskirts, it actually benefits everyone in between. It's a concept in ergonomics, it's a concept in neuroscience that so much of the world is designed for the average person who's right in the middle. And that works for a certain amount of people, but it doesn't work for everyone, like you and me, because we're neurospicy and the world is not built for us. When we have more systems in place that are built for people like us, it actually includes everyone on the inside as well. I think what you're talking about is creating our own systems or breaking outside of the norms and really establishing a new norm for how people can communicate, what curiosity looks like, what self-trust can look like. Trusting yourself really is the key to be able to look outside of yourself and communicate and be curious. Tell me a little bit more about self-trust, what that means and what it looks like.
For me, self-trust is about a couple things. One is pausing. I think as an HSP who can get flooded or an ADHDer who has 1,000 thoughts a minute, pausing can be a challenge, but is also such a critical way for me to be able to check in with myself. I'm really good at going, going, going and not stopping. And so the pause is a way that I allow myself to say, everything's going to be there. I can stop for a moment and also tune in and see, am I exhausted? Am I hungry? Do I need some water? Maybe I need to not see people for a day and then come back. That was a tough thing to learn. That is one part of it. Another is more generally listening to our bodies. I was well into my 30s before I learned that that is something I needed to do. And that was actually giving me a lot of information. I remember applying for a job that I knew was going to be stressful and toxic, and it looked good on paper, but it didn't feel great. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I remember having a panic attack a day before I signed the papers to work there. At that point in my life, I had no idea what it was. I didn't make the connection. I was so out of touch with myself and my needs and what my body was trying to tell me that I had no idea, understanding that our bodies do things to tell us to pay attention. And starting to listen to that is a really critical component of self-trust, and knowing that we can't always just think through all of it. Another thing I would say comes back to boundaries. That's a word that did not exist when I was growing up. I feel like more people are aware these days of how great it is to have boundaries. It requires a trust of yourself that you can be truthful and honest with people when you're talking to them, when you set a boundary, and trust that you can hold their reaction, whether they accept it or not. Knowing that you're choosing you is a really important component of self-trust.
That was such a great explanation, Em. I can relate to those things because when you're a chronic people pleaser or a rescuer or a fixer, you do end up lying a lot about what you want or what's important to you, or even having preferences. Being able to be honest with yourself builds that self-trust so that you can then share it with other people. That part you said about your physical experience giving you so much wisdom. I think our culture really prioritizes our thoughts and often even spiritual bypassing. We devalue our emotions and our physical body and the sensations in it because we think that that's base or too primal or something that we humans have evolved past, when it's actually such an important part of our experience. I love that you connected the head, the heart, and the body pieces.
I think it's also something that's especially critical for highly sensitive folks, people with ADHD, people living outside of the norm, because there are ways in which we experience more stress sometimes. Being aware that that is the case allows you to make choices to better support your health and your energy, or support what your body needs.
Yes, 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 yes. I needed to hear that today, so I'm sure someone else needed to hear that today too. We've covered a lot of qualities and skills that you can learn: self-trust, communication, curiosity, conscientiousness, inclusion, queerness. From here, what is one thing that you would like people to take away from our conversation today?
The biggest thing that I would love for everyone to take away is harness your curiosity. When we are able to ask questions and accept that we don't always have to have answers, the fact that you're digging, the fact that you're asking, that's how you open new doors and open new pathways. Lean into curiosity.
What are the types of things that you help your neurodivergent clients with so that people know, oh, Em is the one for me?
We work a lot on values. People can often assume values from their family or from their work culture or from external sources. And really digging in and understanding what somebody values, what's most important to them, how they prefer to relate to the things going on in their lives is critical. Without knowing that, it's tricky to be able to make decisions and hold boundaries and communicate clearly if those things haven't been sorted through. Understanding that as a foundation, and then working on self-trust. What are the ways that you talk to yourself in your mind, especially for ADHD folks and probably highly sensitive as well? There's so much judgment and self-criticism and talking to ourselves like we are just awful because we're not fitting into these systems, but we're not broken. So there's a lot of unlearning and rebuilding with a sense of, I know what I need, I know what my capacity is, I know what my values are. And now I have a framework to be able to make different choices and show up differently in the world in a way that actually feels authentic.
That is more crucial now than ever.
Yes. Yeah.
To navigate stressful situations in our lives, in society at large, and to be able to tap into those values and really show up powerfully in them. Yeah. The other thing that you said too that really stuck out to me is the assuming values from other people, but I think sometimes we also assume that other people have the same values as us.
Mm.
We can start to understand that our values are simply different than someone else's values, or that the way that we try to live our values and express them is different from someone else's.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you mentioning that too. I like to use the term systems, being able to build, rebuild your life in a way that supports you or how your brain works. And this can be bringing in body doubling or checking calls or understanding that you have on and off days at work due to your capacity and trying to shift how you engage with a certain project or certain people in a way that supports your natural flow of energy.
Yes, because we don't have to do everything alone and be rugged individuals. You actually can get
Yes.
support. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is. And it helps so much. It really helps so much. I'm also a vulnerability junkie. I love it. I love it so much. I think it's one of the best parts of connecting with people. When you do ask for help or ask for support, that is a way to connect with people. People want to help. Sometimes working through, the mental gymnastics of being able to ask for help is a really important step of the process too.
Yes. And if people would like to get some help from you, Em, how can they connect with you?
They can connect with me at queerlyforwardcoaching.com. Also, I'm really excited to announce that I'm doing a workshop with a friend of mine who is a career coach and resume writer. We are doing a specific interview skills lab for neurodivergent folks. We're going to break down the interview process and not only what the hiring managers are thinking, the kind of gate-kept information, right, that interviewees don't always get, but also where it's really important and helpful for neurodivergent folks to show up, voice their needs, and make sure that they're also interviewing the interviewers in the process. That will be held virtually on July 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern. That can be found on Eventbrite. There is a link both on my website, and if you go to you'renottheproblem.eventbrite.com, you will find the workshop. You're Not the Problem, Neurodivergent Skills for Interviewing That Actually Work.
Okay, July 29th, 2025. It's online, so anyone can join. Is it
Correct.
free? Is it paid?
It is 20 and it will be recorded, so it will be available to folks who can't make the time. I also work one-on-one with folks coaching. I am launching my first group program in August for ADHD folks. It will be 4 weeks, just long enough to get really juicy and just short enough that it doesn't feel like too much of a commitment. There are 8 spots for people. We're going to be doing group coaching every week. You'll have one-on-one coaching sessions. You'll be paired up with an accountability buddy. And it's going to be a really beautiful way to start this kind of unlearning process. Know that you're not alone and witness each other as everyone learns how to build their life toward a system that supports them.
Em is a fantastic coach. I have seen them coach and they are so good. You have your workshop on the 29th of July. You've got one-on-one coaching and you're launching your group program. I will make sure I have all of that contact information and how to work with you in the show notes if you are interested in connecting with Em. And do you have any final thoughts you want to share just to complete our conversation today?
First, thank you so much for having me. It's such a treat to talk with you. You're so knowledgeable about the highly sensitive world, and seeing the overlap with ADHD is just awesome. I want to leave people with this, that they're not broken. There is nothing wrong with you if you're very sensitive or if it's tough to keep track of time and hard to get tests started, whether someone is diagnosed with ADHD or just resonates with some of the things that we struggle with. Nobody is broken. We have all evolutionarily developed the ways that our brains work. And understanding that makes it easier to adapt your environment to better support you.
No one is broken. It's just that the systems are not supporting you, so you can build your own system in order to thrive in it. Oof.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for coming on today, Em.
Thanks.
This was such a great conversation, and I learned so much today. So I am certain that my listeners will as well. And remember, if any of you want to do this workshop with Em, $20 is nothing for the kind of value that I am certain you're going to get. I will again have all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening. If you're ready to take what you learned today to the next level, head over to Stephanie Linn, that's LINN.com, and book a consultation call to get started. I can't wait to see you there, my dear HSP.